There is a specific moment on the path of awakening when something shifts quietly within you. It is no longer about searching for answers. It is no longer about accumulating knowledge. It is when a subtle urgency arises, the feeling that others must see what you have begun to see. Many interpret this as compassion. Others call it a spiritual mission. Yet few are willing to question whether this impulse hides a trap far more sophisticated than ordinary ignorance. Ancient teachings warned about this, not as moral advice, but as a law of consciousness itself. Among them, the teachings attributed to Thoth, whose precise historical existence remains debated, yet whose symbolic principles have endured for millennia, are remarkably direct. Awakening cannot be transferred, only recognized when it ripens from within. This video is not a call to awaken the world. It is an invitation to understand why attempting to do so may delay your own expansion, drain your vital energy, and anchor you in a reality less coherent than the one you could inhabit. From modern psychology, we now understand that human identity is designed to protect itself. When confronted prematurely, the mind does not expand, it contracts. From neuroscience, we learn that the brain does not change through force, but through repetition, safety, and meaning. And from contemporary physics, while maintaining scientific rigor, we understand that systems only resonate when they share compatible states. What many popular spiritual narratives overlook is both simple and uncomfortable. Consciousness does not respond to pressure. It responds to coherence. Throughout this journey, we will clearly distinguish what is scientifically verifiable from what is symbolic or interpretative, so that your understanding remains lucid rather than belief-based. We will speak about spiritual ego, not as judgment, but as a developmental stage. We will explore parallel realities, not as fantasy, but as experiential models of divergent timelines. And a little further ahead, we will discuss the true role of the awakened individual, which is rarely what is imagined at the beginning. If this level of reflection resonates with you, consider subscribing to the channel, not as an automatic gesture, but as a conscious decision to remain within a field of dialogue that unites science, spirituality, and inner responsibility. Liking and commenting also helps this field reach other minds ready for this depth of inquiry, supporting a genuine, not forced, expansion of collective awareness. Listen without haste, without the need to convince anyone. You may discover that your greatest contribution to the world is not awakening others, but silently sustaining the frequency you have already embodied. As one moves through the early layers of awakening, an almost inevitable phenomenon arises, a sense of cognitive isolation. Patterns, inconsistencies, and conditioning that once went unnoticed suddenly become clear, and everyday reality appears to operate under a different logic. This internal shift creates discomfort, and it is precisely here that the impulse to explain, warn, and convince is born. From a psychological perspective, this is understandable. Human beings are social organisms. When one's perception of reality changes, there is an unconscious attempt to restore external coherence by adjusting the environment to match the new internal worldview. The difficulty begins when this attempt is mistaken for elevated altruism, when in fact it is often an unconscious search for validation of a newly forming identity. It is important to be transparent. There is no scientific evidence that one person can awaken another in the spiritual sense of the word. What science does observe are gradual changes in beliefs, values, and mental models, always initiated by internal motivation. No deep transformation is sustained when imposed from the outside in. Teachings attributed to Thoth address this symbolically by suggesting that knowledge offered before the proper time becomes a burden rather than illumination. Historically, we cannot precisely define who Thoth was as an individual, but the archetype associated with this name represents intelligence linked to order, rhythm, and natural maturation. When interpreted carefully, This symbolism aligns with what modern neuroscience confirms. The brain rejects information that threatens its identity structure before sufficient safety exists to integrate it. We will explore the neurological mechanics of this resistance a little further ahead. For now, it is enough to understand this. Attempting to awaken someone who did not ask for it is perceived by their nervous system as intrusion, not assistance. The result is rarely expansion. More often, it is resistance. This is where what is commonly called spiritual ego begins to operate in a refined way. Unlike the conventional ego, which seeks status, power, or social approval, the spiritual ego seeks correctness, moral superiority, and the role of truth-bearer. It does not appear as overt arrogance, but as persistent concern with the consciousness level of others. This stage is particularly subtle because it is accompanied by elevated language, good intentions, and often external validation. The individual becomes the awakened one, the conscious one, the one who sees beyond. Without noticing, identity begins to depend on this role. Physics does not speak of ego, but it does speak of balance. Systems out of equilibrium require more energy to maintain themselves. When someone constantly tries to correct the internal state of other systems, other people, they enter a state of continuous energetic expenditure. This manifests as emotional fatigue, quiet irritation, and the sensation of carrying an invisible weight. You may have felt this already. The frustration of explaining something that feels obvious to you, only to meet indifference or hostility. This is not a sign that you know more. It is a sign that you are operating from different states of internal readiness. The real turning point comes when one understands that consciousness is not something to be delivered, but something that reveals itself when the ground is fertile. No seed germinates in soil that has not yet been prepared. Insisting on planting before the right time does not accelerate growth. It only wastes resources. A little further ahead, we will explore what happens when you stop trying to change others and redirect that energy toward your own alignment. For now, observe honestly. How often has the urge to awaken someone been accompanied by tension, impatience, or the need for recognition? These signs do not indicate moral failure. They simply indicate that the process is still unfolding, and that is entirely human. There is a deeper layer, rarely explored, where this dynamic ceases to be merely psychological and becomes energetic. When someone tries to awaken another, what is truly happening is not an exchange of information, but an attempt to couple internal states. In simple terms, one system attempting to force another to vibrate at a frequency that is not yet stable for it. In physics, systems only enter resonance when they share compatible conditions. Otherwise, dissipation occurs. Energy is lost through friction. In human experience, this friction appears as emotional fatigue, quiet anxiety, contained irritation, or a subtle sense of emptiness that is difficult to name. The person feels they are doing something meaningful, yet grows increasingly drained. This is not spiritual failure. It is a misinterpretation of one's role. Many confuse expansion of consciousness with expansion of responsibility. They assume that seeing more means carrying more. Yet symbolic teachings from ancient traditions consistently point to the opposite. Carrying what does not belong to you creates imbalance, not as moral punishment, but as structural incoherence. In contemporary psychology, there is a concept known as psychological reactance. When an individual senses that their freedom of choice is being threatened, even subtly, resistance arises automatically. The truth of the message becomes irrelevant. The perception of pressure activates deep defensive mechanisms. The mind does not listen when it feels invaded. We will explore how this manifests neurologically a little further ahead. For now, observe something simple. How many times have you shared an idea with the intention to help, only to be met with silence, irony, or withdrawal? Not because the idea was false, but because it arrived outside the other person's internal timing. This is where the modern concept of timelines becomes a useful metaphor rather than a fantasy. People are not merely at different levels of information. They are in different sequences of experience. What is already integrated past for you may still be distant future for another. Forcing these temporalities to meet creates noise. When ancient traditions spoke of respecting the rhythm of the soul, they were not romanticizing waiting. They were describing a natural mechanism of consciousness maturation. Just as a child's nervous system cannot sustain certain experiences without harm, the adult psyche also has temporary limits. Ignoring this does not accelerate evolution. It generates defense. There is also an invisible cost for those who persist in awakening others: fragmentation of presence. Attention remains constantly directed outward, monitoring, evaluating, correcting. Over time, depth is lost. Meditation fades. Silence diminishes. The body's signals are ignored. Life becomes a state of spiritual alertness. This is not illumination. It is sustained tension. If this resonates, pause for a moment. Breathe. Observe whether there is a subtle sense that you must do more, explain more, prove more. This sensation is a clear indicator that something is misaligned, not in the world, but in how your energy is being distributed. The real shift occurs when one understands that awakening does not require witnesses, it requires stability. A coherent field influences without touching, teaches without speaking, invites without pressure. A little further ahead, we will explore how this coherence becomes perceptible to others naturally, almost inevitably. For now, it is enough to recognize, perhaps you are not here to awaken anyone. Perhaps you are here to sustain something still rare: silent lucidity. When this understanding truly settles, something begins to reorganize internally. The need to explain diminishes. The urgency to correct fades. In its place, a rarer state emerges: lucid observation. Not indifference, but discernment. Not withdrawal, but precision. This is a subtle point, often misunderstood. Stopping the attempt to awaken others does not mean becoming cold, distant, or apathetic. It means recognizing that consciousness operates through attraction, not force. What you sustain within yourself creates a field, and coherent fields influence effortlessly. This is observable, though not in the simplistic way many spiritual narratives suggest. In social neuroscience, we know that emotional states and behavioral patterns are contagious. Emotional regulation is transmitted through presence, tone of voice, posture, and microexpressions, not through arguments. A regulated nervous system naturally induces regulation in nearby systems, not by persuasion, but by resonance. It is striking how this mirrors the symbolic teachings attributed to Thoth when speaking of the silence of the initiate. This is not about secrecy or elitism, but about energetic economy. Silence preserves the integrity of the inner field. Speaking before the right moment disperses it. A little further ahead, we will explore why silence, at certain stages, is a highly advanced form of action. For now, notice how many modern spiritual conflicts arise from excessive discourse and insufficient grounding. There is also a common misconception: the belief that if you do not warn others, something disastrous will occur. This carries an implicit assumption of control, as if the course of collective consciousness depended on your direct intervention. It may feel noble, but in practice it generates chronic anxiety and an exaggerated sense of responsibility. From a psychological perspective, this resembles what is known as hyper-responsibility. The individual takes on burdens that are not theirs in order to maintain a sense of purpose and usefulness. On the spiritual path, this easily disguises itself as service. Yet true service does not violate another's rhythm. When this burden is released, something unexpected happens. your energy returns. The body relaxes, the mind slows, perception widens. You begin to notice that some people approach you spontaneously, without any prompting. They do not ask for ready-made answers. They ask questions, and that changes everything. A question is openness. Openness is invitation. Invitation is the only point at which sharing becomes legitimate. It is within this context that the idea of parallel realities can be understood maturely, not as cinematic universes, but as experiential trajectories shaped by repeated inner choices. When your posture shifts from imposition to coherence, the line of encounters, conversations, and opportunities around you also shifts. This is not fantasy. It is consequence. Systems reorganize around stable states. You may have experienced this already. After a period of silence and alignment, people appear who seem ready. They do not need convincing. They recognize. This recognition is not intellectual. It is embodied. There is relaxation, genuine curiosity, real listening. A little further ahead, we will explore how to identify these signs clearly without illusion or projection. For now, remember this. When the meeting is correct, there is no effort, no depletion, no urgency. There is presence. And presence, sustained over time, does more for collective consciousness than 1,000 well-intentioned speeches. As this presence stabilizes, something even deeper reveals itself. Many attempts to awaken others were, in fact, subtle ways of avoiding a more demanding inner call. It is easier to point out incoherence outside than to sustain coherence within. Genuine silence requires radical responsibility. Here, an important distinction must be made with intellectual honesty. There is no scientific evidence that isolated thoughts directly and immediately alter external reality, as some popular interpretations suggest. What science does observe is more precise, and in many ways more powerful. Recurrent inner states shape perception, behavior, decision-making, and consequently the environments and outcomes a person experiences over time. When spiritual traditions speak of frequency, we can responsibly translate this as stable neurophysiological and emotional patterns. These patterns influence what you notice, what you ignore, whom you connect with, which opportunities you recognize, and which never enter your awareness. Thus, shifting timelines is not about jumping into another universe, but about inhabiting a different sequence of choices aligned with a new internal state. This is why trying to save, convince, or awaken others often prevents real change. Attention becomes fragmented. Energy remains tied to frustration, expectation, and comparison. The inner field loses consistency. And without consistency, there is no true transition, only discourse. A little further ahead, we will explore how redirecting this energy creates practical effects in daily life. For now, understand this. The real work begins when you withdraw attention from what others should be and anchor it in what you choose to sustain. This is where resistance often appears. Because adopting this posture means abandoning the role of messenger and entering the experience of being a silent example. There is no applause here, no immediate recognition, only continuous alignment. It is here that simple, often underestimated practices gain real importance. Conscious writing, deliberate repetition of affirmations, non-judgmental self-observation. These are not spells, but training for the nervous system and attention. They create circuits. And circuits, when reinforced, become identity. That is why it is essential to understand something rarely explained clearly. The affirmations you record, in comments or in your personal notebook, are more than words. They are vibrational codes. When you write, read, and repeat them consciously, you create an energetic circuit that reprograms the mind and anchors a new timeline within your field. This is why invitations to comment are not merely for engagement. They nourish a collective flow of consciousness. It is an anchoring exercise. Daily repetition transforms vibration into identity. If you wish to seal this understanding now, write, here or for yourself. I consciously choose the frequency that creates my world. Repeat this phrase in the coming days, aloud or silently. Let it become the soundtrack of your vibrational field. Because each time you pronounce it, the universe reorganizes its particles around this new coherence. And, gradually, everything that does not resonate with it begins to dissolve, naturally, without effort. Interpreted responsibly, this does not mean the universe obeys words. It means the human organism reorganizes itself around meanings repeated with intention, and this reorganization gradually alters lived reality. When this is understood, the urge to correct others fades, not due to indifference, but due to efficiency. Each person can only be met at the point where they are ready to meet themselves. A little further ahead, we will explore how to recognize that point clearly, without mistaking genuine openness for fleeting curiosity. For now, notice how this shift in posture creates inner space for listening, precision, and a subtler, yet more transformative way of being. With this inner space restored, an even more refined perception emerges, the recognition that readiness does not announce itself through words, but through subtle signals. Many confuse intellectual curiosity with genuine openness. Curiosity asks questions without commitment. Openness, on the other hand, alters posture, listening, and rhythm. It does not ask you to prove anything. It creates enough silence for something new to be received. Here, another common misunderstanding must be addressed. Being ready does not mean agreeing with you, nor adopting your language, references, or conclusions. Readiness means tolerating the instability that arises when old certainties begin to dissolve. This is physiological before it is spiritual. The nervous system must be able to sustain ambiguity without entering defense. Without this capacity, any truth becomes a threat. Neuroscience refers to this as tolerance for uncertainty. Individuals with low tolerance tend to cling to rigid narratives, religious, scientific, or spiritual. Those with higher tolerance can remain in not knowing long enough for new integrations to occur. This silent interval is the true gateway to change. That is why when someone is genuinely ready, you perceive less anxiety and more presence, less urgency for answers, and greater quality in questions. Dialogue ceases to be a confrontation and becomes a shared field. And interestingly, when this field forms, the urge to teach dissolves. What remains is the impulse to accompany. A little further ahead, we will explore how this posture profoundly alters relationships. For now, observe something essential. When you respect another's timing, something within you also slows down. You stop chasing spiritual outcomes. You stop measuring impact. You stop counting how many people have awakened because of you. This accounting, though common, is one of the quietest forms of spiritual vanity. When this metric is released, something rarer appears: integrity. Actions begin to align with internal states. There is no elevated discourse sustained by tension, no silence sustained by fear. There is congruence. Congruence is felt, not as explicit authority, but as reliability. People cannot explain why they trust, but they do. They cannot articulate what changed, but they sense it. This is where real influence occurs, without effort, strategy, or the intention to influence. From a scientific perspective, this relates to psychophysiological coherence. Stable internal states generate consistent bodily signals: breathing, heart rhythm, facial expression. Other systems detect this unconsciously. This is not mysticism, it is social biology. The human body evolved to detect safety and coherence long before it learned to process arguments. When ancient traditions spoke of walking in the light, they were not describing a visible aura, but an internal state that reduces noise. Where there is less noise, there is more clarity. Where there is more clarity, there is less need to convince. Perhaps this is one of the most difficult truths to accept on the path of awakening. The world does not change because you explained better, but because you became more stable. Explanations may inspire briefly. Stability transforms slowly, yet durably. A little further ahead, we will integrate all of this into practical orientation. For now, allow yourself to consider a quiet possibility. What if the greatest service you can offer at this moment is not to speak, teach, or warn, but simply to sustain, day after day, a clearer, more regulated, more coherent inner state? This kind of service does not appear in metrics. It does not generate immediate recognition. Yet it reorganizes entire realities around you, and that is precisely why it is so undervalued and so deeply necessary. As this maturity settles in, something essential becomes clear. You do not decide when to speak. The field does. There is a specific, rare, yet unmistakable moment when exchange ceases to be intrusion and becomes encounter. In that moment, your words carry no urgency, no need to convince. They arise almost as a response to something already forming within the other. This is a reliable criterion. When someone is ready, nothing needs to be pushed. The conversation unfolds naturally. There are organic pauses, genuine listening, comfortable silence, and above all, shared responsibility. The other does not expect you to think for them. Your words serve as mirrors, not crutches. This is the opposite of the common dynamic found in attempts to awaken others. There, the weight rests on one side alone. Here, it is distributed. And when weight is distributed, there is no depletion. Psychologically, this marks the transition from dependence to autonomy. Spiritually, it marks the passage from premature instruction to legitimate transmission. Humanly, it gives rise to cleaner, more authentic relationships, free from hidden expectations. At this stage, free will ceases to be an abstract idea and becomes a daily practice. Respecting another's timing is not passivity, it is ethical precision. It acknowledges that each consciousness integrates experience at its own rhythm, and that interference, even well-intentioned, creates noise. When this is fully accepted, your perception of the world changes. You stop dividing people into awake and asleep. This division, though common, creates distance. In its place arises a more functional view, individuals at different stages of processing human experience. This shift dissolves silent judgment, impatience, and the need to constantly position yourself as the one who knows. And paradoxically, you become someone others feel safe approaching. Because safety does not come from having all the answers. It comes from not needing them to sustain who you are. When ancient symbolic texts spoke of guarding knowledge, they were not advocating secrecy, but protection from misuse. A truth delivered too early does not liberate. It confuses. A truth held in silence matures until it becomes inevitable. This may be the most counterintuitive realization for the modern mind. Collective consciousness does not expand through information accumulation, but through stabilization of inner states. Information is abundant, integration is rare, and integration is not taught en masse. It is modeled in daily life, in how you respond, in how you listen, in how you hold contradiction without collapsing. By living this way, you are already teaching, even in silence. And this teaching encounters no resistance, because it does not arrive as a threat. It arrives as possibility. That is why trying to wake everyone up is a trap. Not because the world does not need more consciousness, but because consciousness does not grow under pressure. It grows where there is safety, coherence, and embodied example. If this message resonated with you, share it. Help expand this field of awareness, because each awakened individual illuminates hundreds of others. Leave your comment, your vibration, your testimony, not for engagement alone, but because your energy is part of this collective construction. And remember, the highest timeline is not a future destination. It is a state of being, available here and now. May you walk in peace, clarity, and love, until the next awakening.